Hi, my name is Alan from HawkDive and welcome back to another video. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about what if you don't see your drive in the Windows. Maybe you've built a new PC or you got a new hard drive and you place it into your computer. Now, as soon as you turn on your computer, you can see nothing. There were no extra drives that you have, newly installed. The 5 terabyte hard drive that you've installed is not there, or your NVMe drive is not there. What can you do, and what are the reasons of you not seeing it? Well, of course, there are a lot of different reasons that could happen. This all depends on your build. This all depends on the drive that you installed. This all depends on overall your system and the way you installed it. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about some reasons, such as the physical and software, the things that you can do to figure out what is the reason of your system on Windows not seeing the drive that you have installed, and what can be the possible fixes that you can actually do at home. This is effectively on the software side, because hardware wise, it would be very hard for me to explain to you how to fix a drive, because, even though I'm a computer engineer, I wouldn't go there and try to solder or fix the chips that are inside the drives. So, yeah, let's get on the video, and I'll flash some images on the screen as well, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. So, for the physical reasons, there's a lot of different reasons, physically, of course, and one of those can be the incorrect installation or insertion of your drive to your computer. So, okay, let me get this flat out straight so you know what I'm talking about later on in the video. There are mainly three types of drives. So you got your hard drive, which is, usually the biggest one. It's like, you'll see it in the screen. It's like that. And that's usually what you use to store massive amounts of data. And it's not that fast, but it is, cheaper than SSDs. And talking about SSDs, these are what we call the solid state drives, which doesn't have a mechanical part moving, basically just a flat out drive, and it's fast. And then we have the NVMe SSD, or NVMe M.2, and those are the fastest type of drives, but they're more expensive, and usually they are not installed as SATAs. So basically, SATA, those are the ports. Basically, that's where you plug into the drive to your motherboard. But NVMe's doesn't use SATA, like the actual cables. You just plug it in on the NVMe port on your motherboard. So those are the main three drives that we're going to be talking about in this video. And the first reason, as I've stated earlier, was the incorrect installation or insertion. Maybe you have, you plugged it in, you built your computer, and you didn't realize your cable was not fully plugged in, or maybe your power connector wasn't plugged in properly on the power supply and the motherboard. So, of course, the thing that you would do there is very self-explanatory. You got to check your thing if they are actually installed properly, if they are in there, if they are, not loose on the cables or on the ports. Now, the second thing that may be the reason of why your drive is not being scanned by Windows is a drive damage, like a physical drive damage. Maybe it got lost in the shipping, it fell down the truck, whatever. They came back to pick it up, but it's all shaked up now and it's probably just broken. Nothing we can do about that. Probably want to do, put it back on where you got it from and then buy something else. This is usually susceptible to hard drives and not much on the SSDs. The third physical reason would be it's just a faulty cable. I've had this reason before. My drives are fine, my drives are perfect, but they're not being scanned by Windows. Apparently, the cable that I was using, especially the ribbon flat ones for my hard drive, is already broken. Of course, I just have to buy a new one, place that, it fixed it. Now it's working well. Now, on the software side of things, there can also be a lot of different reasons. This one's more normal. A lot of people experience this and they just don't know how to properly configure the drive for their system, for their Windows machine. So one of the first thing that may happen is on the BIOS settings. So of course, I would not be able to show you every single BIOS settings in this video. I cannot even demo one right now because all my drives are working well. But incorrect BIOS settings, there's a lot of, especially on the newer motherboards or the mid-range newer motherboards. If you do have an NVMe plugged into the motherboard, some SATA ports would actually not work. So that means if you have multiple different drives installed to all of the SATA ports, let's just say because you know you're rich and you can buy anything, and then you got the NVMe on the BIOS settings, some of those turn off the SATA port. So you might want to check your BIOS settings. I highly suggest checking the manual of your motherboard because that would be a lifesaver. Also, there's this thing called RAID 1s, RAID 0s. There's a lot of different settings in RAIDs. So basically, RAIDs, what it does is it combines two. It either combines them, combining is RAID 0, RAID 1 is, I think, duplicate. So that, of course, it depends on your motherboard again. But usually on RAID 0, maybe you're like, yeah, I installed two terabytes, but I'm only seeing one drive here, but it has 4 terabytes. So that means that's on RAID 0, and it basically combined all the drives. So you might want to check it. Once again, I cannot show it to you. You have a different motherboard, probably. You're probably using a laptop too. But you might want to check out the manual of your machine because that's going to be your lifesaver when it comes to the BIOS settings. The next one would be unassigned drives, but I would like to talk about that a little later on because unassigned drives are actually very easily fixable. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. The next one, though, would be corrupted drives. Corrupted drives are drives that may have been, happen to have a physical damage in them, or they're just getting old. The drives are getting old. You got a second hand hard drive, and it's kind of broken, but not really. So I don't know if you guys have encountered this, but it is a possibility. You bought a new hard drive that you thought is new, but they just refurbished it. And instead of on the drive itself physically, because there's usually stickers in them, it says 1 terabyte hard drive, but you're only seeing 750. That is a refurbished drive. So another thing why Windows cannot see the drive is it's corrupted. And there are ways to fix it, but it depends on the drive. Usually, it would still need to be scanned by your system, maybe not Windows specifically, but the hard drive managers that we have on different machines. So later on, I'm gonna be showing you some softwares that can help determine that. But we're talking about the unassigned. Like you cannot see your drive in Windows. So personally, I do have a lot of different hard drives installed to my computer, and all of them is seen. And when I plugged in, when I was using the computers and I plugged in a lot of drives, some of them are not seen. And this specific software thing was the culprit. It was basically an unassigned hard drive. Does that make sense? So let's say I have a lot of drives and I can see most of them. My system can see it, not the actual Windows machine like on the desktop. So let me go to my desktop here. This is my desktop, right? If I press Control E right now, you can see I'm gonna show it to you just a half. Actually, no, you can see most of it. There you go. These are my drives. This is the local. I have a lot of drives, right? And let's say this one doesn't have a letter. It's not gonna pop up in devices and drives. And that is the number one culprit. A lot of people tend to mess up or not think about the unassigned drives. So what can you do, right? This is the biggest fix. Disk management can be your friend. So here I am. I'm going to show you. I'm going to open up my disk management. So to open up disk management, you can search for disk management, of course, on the start menu, or you can search for create and format hard disk partition. So we're just going to press open on that one. And then this is going to be your disk management. You're going to see all your drives in here, right? You're going to see I have all of my drives in there. All of them have letters already. There are already assigned letters. If you don't have assigned letters, again, they're not going to be popping up here. You're not going to be seeing them. They're not going to be usable in a way because you're a new user and you don't know much about systems. Of course, they're still accessible, but they're not as accessible as if they have a drive letter. So how do you assign a drive letter using disk management? So in this management, what you can do is assign letters. So you can go here, as you can see, change drive letter and paths. So I'm not going to do it because of course I'm using the system right now. If I change anything in this, they're going to affect the recording, they're going to affect my system, and there's going to be a lot of lost time for me. So I'm just going to show you how you do it. Let's say this doesn't have an assigned letter, the Steam plus VM. If I right click this, if I click here, it should show assign drive letter. Click it, and as you can see right here, allow access to this volume by using the following drive letters and paths. You can change it. You can add. So you can change it. As you can see, you can press whatever letter. You can add another one. It would still be on the same one, but with a different NTFS folder. So let's not talk about that. Usually you're just going to assign the following drive letter. Or you can also remove, which I don't want to do because I'm using it to record. So that's how you change your drives. But another useful thing about this management is it shows you all your partition. Maybe you do have a partition in your drive and you can only see half of it because some drives are pre-partitioned. And that means if you do have a 1 whole terabyte hard drive, you're not going to be seeing the whole 1 terabyte. It's usually just going to show you 500, 750, or something weird because that's a pre-partitioned hard drive and you want to check the other half of it. It's also going to be seen here. As you can see, my main drive here, the disk 0, it shows you all of it. It shows you 3. This 2 doesn't have letters because they don't have to, but let's say they need to have letters to be accessible. These ones don't have letters right now because they're just an EFI system partition that has kind of the main data for your system to work that you don't want to mess around with. But usually they're going to have it here. They're not going to have letter as this one. So you can assign a letter to them. This one, again, I cannot because they are a recovery partition and an EFI system partition. So that's a few things about this management. But what if you cannot access this management? What else can you do to assign a drive letter? Well, you can use this part. So basically what you can do is press Windows key and then run. Search for this part. I'm going to press OK, right? Press yes. I'm going to put this in the middle of the screen. And the next thing that I'm going to do is type in list volume. So this basically shows me all of my drives. So as you can see, we have system and hidden. That's the on the disk management part earlier. Those are the two. Now I have all letters, but let's say I want to assign a letter to volume 1, right? So what I'm going to do is type in select volume and then volume number. So let's say 2. Now volume 2 is selected. Now if I want to add a letter, I'm going to type the command assign letter equal, let's say A. Boom. That's what I'm going to type. I'm going to press enter. But of course, I'm not going to press enter because, again, system's using it. I cannot do much of it because it's going to ruin my system. But that's the assign letter using this part. Very useful, especially if you're running some troubleshooting. Maybe some of your system specs are not working properly, especially when you already have data going on. But that's that. But there's one more. There's one more application that I want to talk about, albeit this application is not going to be free. This one is from Paragon. So basically, if I go to this website, let me open up my browser for you guys. And then there's a lot of Flappy Bird. So there's a lot of Flappy Bird because I made a video about those. So let me just reopen Brave. And then let me search for Paragon Hard Disk Manager. Typed it incorrect, but it's all right. There you go. Paragon Hard Disk Manager for Windows by Paragon Software. This is mostly used by technicians, as why I have it. So it costs a lot of money, but it has a lot of features that are so useful for your drive, making backups and whatsoever, making them organized, assigning letters, checking them. So right now it costs around 5,000 Philippine peso, so around 70 US dollars if I'm not mistaken. So let me just do 5,000 PHP to USD. Yeah, around 80 and 90. So you get the idea. It costs a lot for a lifetime though, and I do use the software. So let me just show you. I'm gonna open Paragon Hard Disk Manager. Again, we're still talking about what if you don't see your drive, right? talked about the physical possibilities, talked about the software, which is just mainly assigning it a letter and checking your BIOS depending on your motherboard. Um, but here, let me just show you this app. This app is cool. So, we're not sponsored. HawkDive is not sponsored by this application. I myself, Alan Avila, just use it as a technician in a way. So I use the backup, especially for other systems that they do have a lot of different files. If I have to do a backup, I just use the backup. So that's cool. But now if I move into this tab right here, the left one, you can see the select or this volume. Once again, you can see every file that we have in here. So what if you want to assign a letter? It's the same thing. You're just going to press it. You can do partitions. I will talk more about partitions in a little bit here, but what if you want to assign letter? So you click on one of your drives, you click change drive letter or assign drive letter if they don't have one yet. So you just press it. This is gonna pop up, and of course you can do a different drive letter. Let's say J. I'm gonna click change now, and it's gonna change. Of course, I'm gonna cancel this. Again, I'm using the system, so that would not be useful. That would not work with us. But what other things can you do? You can do check file system, test the surface. This is so useful for corrupted hard drives because there are drives that is being scanned by Windows and your system, but it keeps disconnecting. And it might be because they are also corrupted. But what can you do about that? You can defragment your drive. You can basically split the partition, do like 500 gig. Now, we're not going to be talking about clusters here because that's too advanced. But basically, clusters are, let's just say, pixels of your screen, right? If there are some broken pixels on the middle of your screen, you can select that pixels on your screen and move it somewhere else. But that is clusters on a drive, and that's too hard to do. And I might not be able to show it to you in this video, but that's a possibility. But one of the main fixes, if you do have a half corrupted hard drive, is just lowering down the size that it has. So basically, let's say again, this one, I'm gonna select it. I'm gonna do split partition, and of course, it shows here it's gonna calculate the split size possible, and right here you can see it right there. You can assign its own letter, of course, for it to be seen by Windows. So that's a quick fix if you do have that problem. Just tossing it out there because that is still within the range of um, having a drive that is not seen by Windows. But yeah, that's hard disk Paragon manager or Paragon hard disk manager, and a very useful program, honestly. But this video is mainly to just tell you the facts, the things that you can do. Check out if why your drive is not being seen by Windows. But those are the general reasoning and the general things that you could do or perform to get your drive be seen by Windows. And yeah, I think that is it for me. And hopefully you did learn a thing or two in this video. And if you do have any questions, please comment in the comment section below, or check out the HawkDive website, which we produce articles that are more in-depth and related to the videos that we create in this YouTube channel. Again, my name is Alan Avila. You can check out my own socials at Alan Avila. And yeah, visit us over at HawkDive and have a good day. Thank you for watching.